We're Headway, Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland. So we look after 2 counties, which is a fairly sizable territory, and a city, delivering support services to people that have survived a brain injury, whether that was an acquired brain injury or a traumatic brain injury or a stroke. Stroke is the leading cause of physical disability for adults. Most people know that. There is a Headway UK, which creates some confusion. Headway UK is its own charity that looks after the politics and lobbying and legislation of brain injury and how it's represented. Yeah, and we're the Leicester subsidiary. So we have 2 core services, really, both of which are very important. We have a day service, which is attended Monday to Friday, 9:30 till 2:30, probably 20 people in a day, depending how many of those need a wheelchair. The more wheelchair users, the fewer those without a wheelchair we can accommodate. And the purpose of the day service is, honestly, just being predominantly being with people that have also suffered a brain injury. So that critical peer support, you're not alone in this. It's also access to things that the NHS take a very long time to deliver based on eligibility criteria, such as occupational therapy. We have an in-house occupational therapist, and she's a neuro occupational therapist. That's her specialism. We have a neuro physiotherapist. He does less hours for us because physio is slightly easier to access through the NHS, and of course helped if you've got a clinical negligence claim through your solicitors. So they're our sort of in-house rehab team, and they work with everybody that attends the day centre in one way or another, whether that's outside of day centre hours remotely through a digital day centre, or whether that's on site. To here, the physio is typically on site. There's art therapy, music therapy, less music because it's hard to get the volunteers, cooking, gardening, and a pretty well attended woodwork room. On a Thursday, we have men's day because more men than women suffer brain injuries, mostly due to occupation, lorry drivers, construction. And the woodwork room is a really sort of key service. It's also one of the key sort of sensory things for anybody that's got the motor skills to participate. Gross or fine motor skills, you can still have a go in the woodwork room. Yeah, and it's just a very supportive environment. That's the main thing I'd like to pitch to Chesterton's House today. But we do have another critical service called community outreach. That's a lot more complicated because it's harder to get statutory funding for somebody to come into your home, go to an appointment with you, whether that's, that could be your GP, it could be court, it could be benefit signposting, it could be a home assessment if your home is safe now that you've had the injury and you're, adapting to your new physical circumstances. So that's community outreach, and that is far and wide across Leicestershire and Rutland. It's a very challenging team to support. But in the case of the day service, what I'd really like to do, they've all got these fantastic bonds with each other because there's tragically quite a limited recovery from brain injury in that everyone's best case scenario is different. Best case scenario, you return to work, brilliant, and your life isn't too impacted. But for some people, best case scenario can just be surviving day to day, enjoying day to day, having some good mental health day to day, and maybe doing activities of daily living independently, cooking, cleaning, whatever, day to day. But one thing that's really clear to me is we don't get that many guests, and they love guests. The chance of a new conversation, the opportunity to participate in something fresh. And it's very hard for me to take them out for the day because of the logistics of minibuses and staff and volunteers. I mean, to take 11 people in a wheelchair is an equal amount of staff, for example. So getting people in and broadening their educational opportunities, those sensory experiences, all of that, the reassuring sort of thing that can come from learning something new, doing something new, or a new skill. And what I was hoping Chesterton's House would fund is that one of our members has had a brain injury, and he is a trustee. And we put him in charge of a lot of the beneficiary, unofficially in charge, a lot of the beneficiary-led type activities because he's been there so many years and because he's quite able. And James said that years ago, they had an animal experience. And that those that got to attend the animal experience, so the animals were brought to the centre, loved it. And there were great plans to roll it out across a 5-day week that got interrupted by COVID. And often people with brain injuries as well have memory problems. And the fact that so many people have mentioned it to me since I got here, can we have the animal man again? Can we have the animal again? Man, it means it made a difference. The fact that they're remembering it, they're remembering it from one time to the next that they see me. They've been asking me about it. James is the great leader because he's mad about frogs and amphibians, and this guy's got snakes and a bearded dragon. But what I'd really like to fund is a kind of sensory-led, education-led project that ran across a week so that everybody had the opportunity to attend, where this chap comes in. I'm really sorry, but I've forgotten his name. But let's say he's called Animal Magic or something. I don't know. But he has an owl and various mammals and creepy crawlies and frogs and snakes and all sorts. The idea would be that he came in for the week, but also that we built all the other therapies around it for that week. So we could do things on the Digital Day Centre that were largely educational. We could build our art therapy around it for the week or longer. We've got a couple that are really interested in photography. They could then take photographs. The woodwork guys, there's about half a dozen guys that just love the woodwork room. They could build hedgehog houses, bird houses, but we've kind of done bird houses. But the idea would be that the staff and I would then build an entire topic around it and kick it off with this and have something positive on their calendar and that's quite sensory led and very accessible for everybody. Even the people, with kind of one functional hand in a wheelchair could really participate in, all of the sensory elements of the animals.
I mean, you mentioned there about people coming in and helping as volunteers. Is that something that, if we had people that wanted to come and help in a hands-on way, that we could do that?
Absolutely. And always that volunteer pathway, I like to consider that I'm reasonably good at marketing, but boy, it's a real slog to get volunteers. And the thing that's important to communicate is if you only had one morning and all you had the bandwidth to do was play Uno and have a cup of coffee with Jag. The thing is, Jag's played everybody at Uno 100 times. So he'd just be delighted to just tell you about himself and maybe ask it, it depends on their communication skills, but Jag's just an example. But yeah, the volunteering could be a whole day, a whole project. We've got 9 solicitors coming to build a pond for us next week, for example. They've only got a day. That's all they get in their calendar year, but they get one day. And I sort of engineered this project to fit 9. But any volunteering would be really, really great. Really great. We just had a citizen of Loughborough. I think you guys are based in Loughborough. And I went out with the community outreach team, I suppose, because being honest, Andy, I'm not typically a sensitive person. So I've come to this job probably with the wrong lexicon for certain conversations. So I said I'd like to go out on community outreach and also to understand it better, because it was much harder to understand than the day centre, which once you're in by osmosis, you understand by the time you leave. And there was a gentleman in Loughborough who, for various reasons, had fallen through the cracks, had a brain injury when he was a child. And finally, a GP referred him and we connected him with Headway. By the time we got to him, he was in a state that's, very impossible in sort of my middle-class village to actually even to accept that it was real. So he told me that, nobody had visited him in 2 years, which turned out to be true. His GP wouldn't see him anymore, which turned out to be fair, but then he had no GP access and he was diabetic. And there were a whole list of problems, but and obviously I can't go into any name details, but this chap in his 50s that had worked until his early 40s, born and bred in this county, same as me, born and bred here, and just he told us he would take his own life when his dog died. He told us he was on his last, he had nothing left to give, that the government just giving him PIP was meaningless. He needed somewhere to go. He needed people to talk to. He was a unique case of being an extremely strong self-advocate and very clever. So, but to cut a long story short, he killed his dog and he killed himself. Mm. And that's not for Headway to take on their shoulders, but I'm just saying that sort of life-saving reality for people that have got very specific needs and there are elements that are very hard to access, and that's all where the mental health things come to. If it would really make our members happy to see a snake, then sure, I'll get them a snake, because it just matters such a lot. Anyway, I digress, but he was from Loughborough, because the challenge with Loughborough is getting them from us to the day centre, and that's why he didn't attend. And we tried everything. We put one of our guys through for a minibus license, but then we couldn't get a minibus, and so on and so forth. So that's very high on my agenda, is trying to facilitate a transport link from cross county for people like him, because I genuinely believe if he'd been able to come to the day centre with his dog, I can't say it would have kept him alive, but I can say it would have given him something to look forward to. and he would have maybe even made a friend because he was so lonely. Anyway, sorry, I'm telling you because he was from Loughborough.